you listen to the critics, if you listen to your own doubts and call them reasons, you may never find the drive to go back to school. But a little change in direction, a new perspective, and the right program may make your successful new path a reality. The Accelerated Degree Program at Albright College. Start your degree or complete your degree one night a week in as little as 2 years. Albright College. A different way of thinking.
Good evening, and welcome to the Albright Scholar for December 2016. My name is John Pankratz, and each month it's my privilege to welcome BCTV viewers and residents of Greater Reading to take a glimpse inside our learning community up here on North 13th Street, to look at the work being done by teachers and students, and to think a bit about its impact on all of us. Well, another semester has come to an end. And in a way, we're going to talk about a kind of ending as well. We're going to talk about two remarkable careers of Albright scholars. When I announced that Mary Jane and Richard Androne were going to appear on the show tonight on Facebook, within 24 hours, 297 alums and friends had written in saying that these are the absolute best people on the planet, that they're brilliant, kind, and nurturing mentors and teachers. So we are in for a treat tonight. They're two of my very favorite friends and Albright personalities. Dr. Mary Jane and Dr. Richard Androne, members of the Department of English at Albright College. Dick and Mary Jane, welcome to the Albright Scholar.
Thank you.
Great to see you here. I'm not sure how we're going to cover both of your careers in just a half an hour, but we'll try to talk about some high points and talk about Albright and talk about the curriculum and talk about some of your students as well. I can briefly say that both of you come from the Midwest, from the Great Lakes region, as do I. Mary Jane, you're from Winnetka, Illinois, and Dick from Beloit, Wisconsin. And Mary Jane went to Northwestern, and Dick to Harvard College. And then you met at the University of Pennsylvania, where you both did your PhDs in literature. And then ended up at our fair school here in Reading, Pennsylvania. What difference has that made to both of you? With a Penn PhD, conceivably you could have gone off to a Research One university, but you ended up at a small liberal arts college.
I think that the idea of a small liberal arts college was always my ideal, and I would have to say that Albright, for the past 44 years of my career, has fulfilled that ideal in many ways. And I think if I ever had a chance to have another job, it would be as a lobbyist for liberal arts colleges like Albright, because I think it's a wonderful experience for students between the ages of 18 and 22, and even those who are adult learners and come back at a later age. The contact with faculty, with other students in a much more intimate environment, I think, is really a very productive way to study. And I would have to say that that the experiences that I've had with students over the years, I think when you're in a small school, you really get to know students. You see them for 4 years. You have them in classes from the time they're freshmen until they're seniors, and you have a chance to really see how they grow. And that's been very, very rewarding. So for me, Albright has been incredibly satisfying as a place to spend 44 years of my life.
I think they continue to grow long after you've taught them, and that owes something to you as well. Dick?
Well, I feel very privileged to have taught at Albright College 43 and a half years. I feel very fortunate to have spent my career at this wonderful school. I think growing up in Beloit, Wisconsin, which is home to Beloit College, a liberal arts college, something like Albright College, probably prepared me more than the universities I attended for life at Albright College. Although I did not attend Beloit College as an undergraduate, I had taken some courses there when I was in high school, and both of my parents went to school there, and they were convinced liberal arts college graduates who felt that their lives were transformed by attendance at a private liberal arts college. 9 members of my family had attended the school. So you might say being a professor at a liberal arts college was almost in my blood. And I've just loved it. And retire with a certain amount of reluctance.
I can imagine. We let you go with great reluctance. I have no idea what the spring semester is going to be like around this place. Being a professor at a school this small also imposes its burdens, so that you're not simply a classroom teacher, but you're an active campus citizen. You're participating in the wider community around Albright. You're involved in the co-curricular concerns of students as well.
I would agree with that, and I think that there are so many opportunities for faculty to, participate in those things, whether it's, the theater or the music program. I've been very involved with the Friedman Gallery in all of my years here, and that's been amazingly enriching for me. It's a wonderful gallery, and I've learned so much about contemporary American art in being able to, participate in that. And I think other people have similar experiences. And it always involves students, and to be able to see them outside the classroom, in a more relaxed way is very, very satisfying.
Yes, the low pupil-teacher ratio, dealing with students in comparatively small groups, not always very small, but small in comparison with university life, creates an atmosphere of closeness with students. And I've just loved getting to know students, socially as well as academically. And I've met some of the most wonderful people in my life on the student body at Albright College, but also my faculty colleagues such as yourself. Wonderful, wonderful faculty colleagues. And I suppose that should be mentioned too. I have a brother-in-law who was in an English department at a Research One university, very distinguished university, and the focus of his academic life was pretty much the department, a department of 50 people. And the focus of academic life, when you're not dealing with students at a liberal arts college, is really the faculty as a whole. Not that one is necessarily close to everybody, but one draws one's friends, people you work with for the betterment of the college on committees. Sometimes you work with even as academic colleagues, teaching in interdisciplinary courses. One draws those all across the spectrum, and not necessarily just from a department or a field close to one's own.
The fact that for the last 20-some years you've lived very close to campus, or 30-some years, in your lovely home on Palm Street, and that's become a sort of center of conviviality and hosting student gatherings and that sort of thing over the years as well.
It's been enjoyable being able to have students, and I would say too that even now many of our closest friends are former students that have come back to the area or stayed or live here part-time, and that's been very satisfying as well.
Let's talk a little bit about your own scholarly development and the way in which the English department curriculum and the courses that you've taught have changed over the years.
Well, I would say the last 40 years has been incredible in terms of the number of changes and the direction of changes. I started in the middle 70s teaching a course in gender studies with Marcia Green in the psychology department, and also went on to teach courses in women's literature and eventually African literature, because I became very interested in that. And I think that it is only a place like Albright where you have the opportunity to be able to make those kinds of
And
changes.
your original field was
Was
Victorian.
Victorian literature. And I would tell my students, my women's studies students, that, and they found this hard to believe, that before I came to Albright and started teaching some of the courses in women's literature, that I never had a woman professor either at Northwestern or the University of Pennsylvania, and I could count on one hand the number of women writers I had read. And when it comes to multicultural writers, I think the only writer that was ever taught to me as an undergraduate was James Baldwin. So the direction, the much more inclusive curriculum, and the fact that we have courses that are so much more diverse, I think for me has been an education in itself, because you read these writers in relation to the much more traditional canon that was so much a part of my education. And I would say that for me at least, that change, that direction in being able, to go from a very traditional field into something that is much newer and more experimental and just, opens up all kinds of vistas. I mean, it changes, in many ways, when you study women or when you study, another culture, it changes the paradigm. And the novel is different, the language is different, the themes are different, and the ways in which you see that variety, I think, are just enormously important in terms of students' education. And for me, being at Albright during this period, during the last 40 years where there have been these just amazing changes in the curriculum, has been so much a central part of what I enjoy as a liberal arts professor.
Yeah, it's been a personal adventure.
Yes, absolutely.
I've appreciated being able to teach very broadly at Albright College, and I think most of the faculty, especially in the humanities, would say that this is one of the benefits of teaching at a college like Albright, and this affects your scholarship. I would have developed differently had I gone or stayed at a Research One institution. I suppose that my field would have been deeper, but it would have been certainly narrower. And because I've been free, let's say, to teach classical literature and translation, medieval literature, British literature, as well as American literature, by profession and training, I'm a 19th century Americanist, as you know, John, with one foot in history, as well as the other in literary study. I did my dissertation work on a member of the Adams family of Massachusetts, Henry Adams, who was a famous historian, president of the American Historical Association, but also a creative writer. And but I've been able to branch out into other things. I had read no John Updike before coming to Albright College, but I quickly learned, I had heard of him, but there are many distinguished 20th century American writers, and I just hadn't gotten around to Updike, but I learned that there was this very distinguished writer from Berks County, and who had written eloquently about Berks County, and that excited me, and I started reading Updike, and I haven't stopped. I'm a charter member of the Updike Society that was formed after his death. He didn't want a society. He's such a profoundly autobiographical and nostalgic writer. He didn't want other people, I think, using his material. But after his death, the door was open, and we have an active international John Updike Society. The next meeting is going to be in Dubrovnik. So there are people all around the world who read John Updike, and I'm very happy to work on John Updike. And he, I would have to say, too, as an outsider in Berks County originally, I've learned so much about Berks County, not just from living here, but from reading John Updike.
He's enriched your sense of this place.
Very much so. To have a great writer. The other, of course, very great writer is Wallace Stevens, who has enriched our understanding of Berks County, although his connection is sometimes less obvious. It's very real.
And in the past, you've taught a course on reading Updike in
Yes,
Reading.
for many, many years, I taught a course called Reading Reading Rabbit, and it was such a privilege to teach students from Reading at a college in Reading, about Updike and to have them reading Updike in Reading. There are multiple puns on the title of that course, and I'm working on some writing about that right now, which I will carry over into retirement. We both plan to continue our scholarly work, in my case on Henry Adams and on John Updike.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Mary Jane, do you have a favorite course that you think back on?
Oh, there's so many because I've, evolved and changed. Certainly the course that I've taught on gender roles with Marcia has been really illuminating, but I also, in the last, I would say 20 years, have taught a number of courses in African literature that have been very satisfying, and I did have an opportunity to spend a month in Senegal as part of a Fulbright seminar, and also to travel to Mexico and the Caribbean as a part of another study tour. And I would say that the courses that evolved out of those experiences, teaching African and Caribbean women writers, those were very enjoyable. And I just was always really pleased and happy that students loved this material. They loved these writers. They weren't, familiar. Most of the students had never heard of many of the writers that we read, but they enjoyed them and responded to them very, very favorably. So I would say that in the last part of my career, with both the conferences and the articles and the teaching, that there was a kind of a unity in terms of what I was moving into, and that was something that I never ever would have been able to predict when I first came to Albright.
I know that one of my favorite moments in the year is visiting you in your offices and talking about our current outstanding students, because your insights are always so precise and so appreciative and so eloquent. I won't ask you to mention favorite students because there are 300 of them watching right now. But what is it about the students that we have here at Albright that makes the teaching rewarding?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I would say that the student body, I wouldn't say that they've been consistently good, but also very, very different in different eras. And I was talking earlier about a period in the late 80s when we had a lot of international students, and some of those students I'm still in contact with. I spoke with Kanya Gakulu from South Africa when I was in Johannesburg a couple of years ago, who's ended up being an advisor to the vice president. I mean, just an amazing career. And of course, Makoma Gugi, who is here and is now teaching at Cornell, is somebody who, was really one of the people that got me interested in African literature. And another student from Jamaica, and Dick was able to connect with Arnie Reynesdatter from Iceland when he taught there. So it's just hard, to think, but those international students do stand out, but there are so many every year that you get a new class, and you can't imagine how you can ever find somebody who is as wonderful as the students the year before, and yet you find them. I mean, they just, every year, there's somebody who there's so many who are really delightful to teach. And I would have to say that for me in retirement, and I've been retired now for not quite one semester, it's been very difficult. It's hard to leave behind all those students who were so wonderful to know and to teach. So for me, the challenge in retirement is trying to figure out, how I can develop some connections with students who are interested in the same things.
We'll try to make that happen. That's a challenge for me as well, because I have to say, every time one of my advisees or just a student I encountered was taking one of your courses, I just felt that they were in such good hands, and I was excited for them and what they were learning, and the traditions that they were being put in touch with, and the discoveries that they were making. And I don't know. I'm sorry for the Albright students of the future that they're not going to have that particular stimulation.
I've had, as I said earlier, some wonderful students at Albright, and I've had some wonderful experiences with students who have been struggling too.
Yes.
And some of the students who have struggled initially have become wonderful students. Liberal arts colleges are transformative places. Institutions of higher learning are, of course, of all kinds. But perhaps it's possible to see growth, change, development, opening up to new experiences. I would have to say that we were both privileged to engage in an activity that affected relatively few students, but those very deeply. In the 1980s, Mary Jane and I took 4 groups of students to the British Isles, twice to London, and then twice to London and Dublin. And the students in these courses, Mary Jane taught 2 of these trip courses, and I taught 2, but we both went. So in a sense, we were joint teachers, and became very close to those students, took them to many, well, really every night, cultural activities in these 2 extraordinarily rich and fascinating old cities. And that was we've kept in touch with some of the people in those courses, and I would like to think that those courses had a deep effect on the lives of at least some of those students.
Well, I know that deep effect was felt by almost all of them. You're right, Dick. Not every student comes to Albright a guaranteed success. It's not a slam dunk.
And many students are not successful right away.
That's right.
After college. It's so enriching to find out about students who bloomed later in life,
That's right.
but who found something early in the Albright experience that they were able to use later.
That lasting encouragement.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I don't want the show to end. Do you have any? We have a whole raft of new colleagues who have joined the faculty in the last couple of years. What sort of advice do you have for them?
Well, I think first of all that Albright is better than it's ever been. I mean, I think we have a wonderful faculty, and I see the same commitment to students and to scholarship among the new faculty as has always been present. I would say to enjoy it. I mean, I can't believe how fast 44 years has gone by. I really honestly can't. And it's been, as Dick said, an incredible privilege. I can't imagine a better job.
It's just been a wonderful place to work, and I hope that newer faculty and members of the staff and administration will have as good a time as we have. Many of them appear to be having that good time. They seem to really be diving into their new courses and enjoying the students very much.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Certainly you as role models and as colleagues and friends have increased my enjoyment of this place just manifold, and I'm really grateful for that. And I've enjoyed all these times, and your example is here with us and will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being with us. Thank you for joining us on tonight's edition of the Albright Scholar. We'll see you in a new year in January 2017. Good night.
If you listen to the critics, if you listen to your own doubts and call them reasons, you may never find the drive to go back to school. But a little change in direction, a new perspective, and the right program may make your successful new path a reality. The Accelerated Degree Program at Albright College. Start your degree or complete your degree 1 night a week in as little as 2 years. Albright College, a different way of thinking.